Now today we're going to go ahead and take a look at this 2018 Chevy Silverado with the Z71 package. We're going to be replacing both left and right front struts on it, so let's get started. Now I really do like these new Chevy Silverados that they've come out with. I really like the updated lights, the front grille. Definitely a nice interior. 125,000 miles on it, so we are due for some struts. Nice clean interior. Nice infotainment system. Reminds me a lot of my GMC Yukon. I wonder why. But let's get these front wheels off and let's get started taking apart these struts. Now, one quick note that I do want to mention before we get started on the Chevy Silverado, I do work on the weekends because I know that most people are working 8 to 5, 9 to 5 jobs, and it's not always easy to get off work during that time, and you don't always want to take the time off. So working on this, he's dropping it off Saturday, picking it up Sunday. It just makes it easier for a lot of my customers. The other thing is my labor rate's $75 an hour for most vehicles. That's domestic and Asian vehicles. It will go up depending on certain European and exotic vehicles. It can go as high as $150 an hour. But I've got a lot of people traveling to me because they know that my labor rates are good. They like to see the work getting done. Being open early hours or late hours or even on the weekends is helping me drum up a lot of business locally, and that's what I'm hoping to do going forward. Let's get this wheel off of here.
One of the nice things about doing this strut replacement is all of our bolts are easily accessed. I got to undo a couple of clips up top so that I can undo those nuts, and then I've just got 2 bolts on the bottom that need to come out, and once those are out, that's all that you need to do. You don't need to take off your upper control arm. You don't need to undo your tie rod ends. I may loosen up these sway bar links just to give me a little bit of extra room when I'm trying to drop it, but that should be all that we have to do.
Alright, and here we've got our strut mounted in the spring compressor. Since we're only doing the strut, we'll go ahead and we'll get the spring compressed, we'll get the strut slid out, and we'll get a new one put in there. Alright, so I'm removing the top nut. That's down and out of the way. Now we should be able to slide our strut down and out the bottom. Alright, so there we have it. We've got our old strut out. We'll need to go through, remove this collar. A couple of notes to make. We are putting these new Bilstein struts on it, but one thing he asked me to do is you can see that there's these individual grooves. He asked me to go ahead and set it on the highest groove, so we'll do that. That's going to pick up the front of this truck, so we will need to readjust the headlights after we get done there. But the original spring seat from the factory strut does need to be reused. It doesn't come as part of this new strut. So we've got the original spring seat here, but he did order some new bushings, so we'll put those on. Just like that. So we've got a new spring seat on there. We'll go ahead and slide it onto this new strut. So we've got that lower seat on. The next thing that we need to do is we've got this top cap that goes on and just sits around the top. So make sure that's nice and tight, and we should be ready to install the new one. So one thing that I've noticed is as I'm attempting to install this new strut, so with my spring seated at the bottom, you can see that I still don't have enough room to get my nut started here. And that's because I'm raising this front strut up. So now what I have to do, I have to loosen everything up and I have to reposition my spring so that I can compress it further. If you look at this spring compressor that I have, you can see that it's actually bending under the force. So I was able to get my new strut in, but To be honest, I do not recommend this V4 spring compressor. It gets the job done, but I don't think it's gonna last. All right, so we'll go ahead and get this strut reinstalled. The way that I was able to get this strut in place, I went ahead and I completely undid my sway bar link. I've got it reinstalled now. I was able to pry down on this lower control arm, this lower A arm, and I used basically a piece of 1x1 that was thin enough to fit in between the gap in the A arm, and between that and the jack I was able to get the strut up and installed. So we've got left and right new front struts installed. Now in regards to these struts, to that center nut that actually locks the strut to the spring assembly, I like to wait until I've got the wheels back on the vehicle and the suspension has settled before I tighten that center nut to the correct torque. Since we're raising up the front of this pickup truck, there's a few things that need to happen. One is I told him that he will need to get an alignment because we are changing the suspension geometry, so it needs to be checked so that way he doesn't prematurely wear his tires. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to set the headlight beams. So because we're picking up the front end, the headlight beams are going to pick up a little bit. So I'll aim it at the side of the barn here and we'll get them lined up. All right, so I've got both vehicles parked about an equal distance away from the barn. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up the truck with the SUV's lights, bring them down. You can see they're a little bit higher, so we'll bring them down to match. After a little bit of adjustment, you can see that we've got them pretty close together. So the way that you adjust these headlights on these 2018 Chevys, if you look down in here, there's a little Phillips head. So all you got to do is adjust that Phillips head. It's either clockwise or counterclockwise, and you'll raise them and lower them. So we've got them all set, so he should be good to go. That's not a terrible way to end your working Saturday. As always, thank you very much for watching. I really do appreciate your support, and I will see you in the next video.